The Sahara wasn't always a desert. Long before it became a sea of sand, it was a land of lakes, forests, and cities. But what happened? Where did it all go? And more importantly, what still lies buried beneath the dunes? Today, we dig beneath the sand to uncover the forgotten world beneath the Sahara. Imagine standing in the middle of the Sahara 10,000 years ago. But instead of scorching sun and endless sand, you're surrounded by green meadows, flowing rivers, and herds of elephants. This isn't fantasy. This is science. During the African humid period roughly between 12,000 and 5,000 years ago, the Sahara was alive. Satellite images, deep core samples, and pollen records tell us a shocking truth. The largest desert on Earth was once one of the most fertile regions on the planet. Rain fell regularly. Lake Megachad, the largest freshwater lake in history, covered an area the size of the Caspian Sea. Animals now found only in Central Africa thrived across this landscape. Giraffes, crocodiles, hippos, and humans lived there, thrived there. Archaeologists have uncovered rock art across the desert, especially in regions like Tassili Niger in Algeria and Gilf Kebir in Egypt. These murals, thousands of years old, depict swimming humans, cattle herding, and people dancing under palm trees. They are visual proof that this desert was once a cradle of life, but then something changed. Around 5,000 years ago, the monsoon system collapsed. The rains vanished, the lakes dried up, the soil cracked, and the Sahara began its transformation into the unforgiving desert we know today. But here's the mystery. What happened to the people who once lived in this lost paradise? Some migrated south into West Africa. Others moved north toward the Mediterranean, but what if some of them stayed? What if beneath the sands lies not just the memory of a green Sahara, but the ruins of cities we've yet to uncover? For centuries, explorers and scholars dismissed the Sahara as lifeless, just dunes, dust, and death. But ancient maps tell a different story. Let's start with the map of Herodotus, the Greek historian from 5th century BCE. His descriptions of the Libyan interior today's Sahara mentions cities, tribes, and even rivers flowing westward. Some details are fantastical, but others eerily accurate. Then there's the mysterious Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral. While most known for its depiction of Antarctica, the northern portion, the Sahara, features rivers, lakes, and settlements that no longer exist. How could a 16th century cartographer include geographic details that match satellite data discovered only in the 20th century? One possibility: he had access to older, lost sources. Ancient maps copied from even more ancient civilizations. Let's not forget Al-Idrisi's Tabula Rogeriana from the 12th century, or the Catalan Atlas of the 14th century. Both show Central Africa and the Saharan zone not as a wasteland, but as a connected, inhabited land with trading routes and cities. And while it's easy to write off old maps as fantasy, some features match too well. One example: the so-called River of Gold, a massive river system thought to stretch from modern-day Mauritania to Sudan. This aligns with satellite imagery showing Paleocanal's ancient riverbeds beneath the sand. So here's the question: did ancient civilizations know something we've forgotten? Were there once rivers and cities in the Sahara that were known, mapped, and later erased? These maps might not be just legends drawn by hopeful cartographers. They could be the last surviving clues to a world buried under dust. What if I told you that the Sahara still holds rivers we can't see? Thanks to satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar, scientists have uncovered massive networks of buried riverbeds called paleocanals that snake beneath the desert sand. Some of these hidden rivers stretch for hundreds of kilometers, weaving a web that once sustained life. One of the most significant discoveries is the ancient course of the Nile. While today's Nile runs north along the eastern edge of the Sahara, evidence suggests that thousands of years ago it had major tributaries now completely dry that reached deep into the heart of the desert. The Wadi Hawar, for instance, was once a mighty river that flowed from the Ennedi Mountains in Chad into the Nile Valley, but today it's just a faint depression in the sand visible only from space. Another massive feature: the Tamanrasset River, believed to have once flowed westward through Algeria, Mauritania, and out to the Atlantic. Radar scans show ancient channels, deltas, and basins that indicate this river might have been thousands of kilometers long. These aren't minor streams. They were wide enough to support civilizations, agriculture, trade, even urban centers. So what happened to them? As the Sahara dried, these rivers vanished. But not without leaving traces, layers of sediment, stone tools, and signs of settlement along their ancient banks. And here's the key: where there were rivers, there were people. The implications are staggering. Entire cultures may have lived along these hidden waterways, leaving behind cities, temples, and records now entombed beneath the sand. And yet, almost none of this is discussed in history textbooks. Why? Because our history follows water, and when that water disappears, so does the memory. But now, as we peer through the sand with modern tools, the rivers are returning not to flow, but to speak. They speak of a Sahara that once thrived, and of people who may have built wonders we have yet to rediscover. Throughout North Africa, tales persist of cities buried by the sand. Some speak of Zerzura, the fabled white city hidden somewhere in the Libyan desert. Others mention vast metropolises swallowed overnight by a vengeful storm for centuries. These were dismissed as myths, but slowly the sand is giving up its secrets. One of the most compelling candidates is the ancient city of Tichet in modern-day Mauritania. First discovered by French archaeologists in the 20th century, the site includes hundreds of stone buildings, granaries, and alleyways. Radiocarbon dating shows it dates back to at least 2000 BCE, making it one of the oldest known urban settlements in West Africa. Tichet wasn't just a village, it was a planned city. Its layout shows zoning, trade routes, and a complex social structure. And it thrived for nearly 1,000 years until the desert crept in. Further east, the Garamontes civilization built underground irrigation systems called fogaras deep beneath the Libyan sands. They cultivated the desert, ran a trade empire, and built cities only to be erased from history until modern satellite imagery revealed their ruins in the 21st century. And then there's the Richat Structure, also called the Eye of the Sahara. While not man-made, its concentric circles have long invited speculation. Could it have once hosted a city? Could it be what Plato described as Atlantis? Whether legend or lost memory, these stories persist. Even today, nomadic Tuareg tribes speak of buried cities of stone streets, gold statues, and underground chambers. Some claim sandstorms reveal doors. Others say foreigners came and took the relics, but here's what we do know. Every time we excavate in the Sahara, every dig, every radar scan, we find more structures, more pottery, more human presence. Where textbooks say there was none, the question is no longer did cities exist here, The question is how many and how much more lies waiting just a few meters beneath our feet. High above the Sahara, modern satellites scan what the human eye cannot see and what they're finding. Doesn't make sense in places once thought to be empty wasteland. Satellite imagery reveals massive geometric patterns, lines to straight, circles to perfect, formations to deliberate, to be natural. One such example is the Kifa Circle, an enormous, symmetrical ring formation located in southern Mauritania. At first glance, it could be dismissed as a geological anomaly. But under spectral analysis, the pattern aligns with ground elevation changes, ancient river paths, and even cardinal orientation elsewhere in Algeria and Libya. Radar and infrared imaging detect faint outlines of rectangular structures buried beneath the dunes, some stretching over 300 meters in length. They resemble city blocks, some even appear aligned along ancient watercourses, suggesting intentional placement. Then there are the mysterious keyhole tombs scattered across the desert, from Morocco to Sudan, circular structures with long, tail-like extensions. Archaeologists debate their function: tombs, ceremonial paths, or something else entirely. But the biggest question: who built them? And why are many of them in places where mainstream history says no one was living? Even more puzzling are the desert kites, vast stone structures shaped like triangles or funnels, sometimes miles long. First thought to be animal traps, some now believe they may have served astronomical or calendrical functions aligned with solstices or lunar cycles. None of this fits into our tidy timelines of nomadic herders wandering a barren desert. These structures point to knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and urban design. They suggest permanence. They suggest intention, but without excavation, without permission to dig, we're left with questions carved into the earth, begging to be answered. Perhaps the most haunting realization: some of these features are disappearing. Wind erosion, mining, development. The Sahara is swallowing its secrets faster than we can uncover them. The clock is ticking. And what we don't study now may vanish forever. To understand the secrets of the Sahara, we must understand its breath. Yes, its breath, because the Sahara has a pulse, a rhythm, and it's not a static desert, it's a living system that expands and contracts over time, like a lung. This is the core of the Sahara pump theory. It proposes that over tens of thousands of years, the Sahara has shifted between being lush and green, then dry and barren, in cyclical patterns tied to Earth's orbital mechanics. Specifically, it's influenced by something called the Milankovitch cycles, changes in Earth's tilt, orbit, shape, and wobble. These tiny shifts affect how much solar energy the tropics receive, impacting monsoons, rainfall, and climate. Every 20,000 years or so, the Sahara pumps, it breathes in water, becomes fertile, teeming with life. Then it exhales. The rains stop. The desert returns. And each time this happens, humans migrate. During the green Sahara phases, populations move northward into the desert. They build, hunt, farm, and trade. When aridity returns, they retreat back toward the Nile, the Sahel, or the Mediterranean. This may explain why we find archaeological layers, stone tools, pottery, buildings in places that today seem impossibly inhospitable. The Sahara pump theory helps us understand population waves, language, families, and even the origins of early civilizations in Egypt and Mesopotamia, because maybe those cultures weren't born in isolation. Maybe they were built by people who once lived in the desert and fled when the climate changed. If true, this changes everything. It means the Sahara is not just a graveyard of forgotten cities. It's a time machine cycling through eras of prosperity and collapse and the next cycle. Well, some scientists believe it's already starting. The southern Sahara is slowly greening again. What will we find as the sands recede? Or perhaps the better question, what warnings from the past will we choose to ignore? Of all the mysteries hidden in the sands, none is as captivating or as controversial as the Richat Structure. Nicknamed the Eye of the Sahara, this massive circular formation in Mauritania measures 40 kilometers across and can be seen from space. But is it just geology or something more? Let's consider the description of Atlantis written by Plato over 2,000 years ago. He described a city built in concentric circles, alternating rings of land and water. He said it was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, facing the Atlantic. It had mountains to the north, flat plains to the south, and was destroyed in a great flood. Now look again at the Richat Structure. It is nearly identical in layout 3. Concentric rings, wide channels, and geological features that match Plato's topography. Mountains to the north, open plain. To the south, ocean access. Possibly thousands of years ago, before sea levels and sand shifted the coast. Coincidence? Many geologists argue that the Richat is a natural formation formed by erosion, not architecture, and they're right so far. No definitive man-made structures have been found within the eye, but here's the twist. No one's really excavated it. The region is remote, harsh, and politically unstable. And even though satellite images show possible rectilinear anomalies within the rings, no formal digs have been permitted. That leaves us in a strange position. On one hand, we have Plato's story long dismissed as allegory. On the other, real-world formation that matches the myth better than any other known location. Is it Atlantis? Maybe not, but could it be the site of another lost city, one that inspired the tale? Or perhaps the remnants of a civilization lost so long ago it predates even our myths? Either way, the Richat demands a closer look, because in a desert filled with secrets, this one stares back at us. What if we've been reading the map of history upside down? For centuries, we've built our understanding of ancient civilization around rivers like the Nile, the Tigris, and the Euphrates, but what if the Sahara was once just as central? What if, thousands of years ago, the desert wasn't a barrier but a bridge? A cradle of migration, a highway of trade, a place where cities rose and were later buried, if even a fraction of the buried rivers, cities, and structures we've seen in this documentary are real. Then history, as we know it, is incomplete. The Sahara might not just be a desert, it might be the missing chapter, and if the Sahara hides civilizations that once thrived and vanished, then perhaps we are not the first to face climate collapse, not the first to rise and fall, because civilizations don't disappear in a day, they vanish slowly. Lost under wind, time, and silence. One day, we dig. And remember, Sahara is not empty, it is not dead, it is a library, a locked archive. The key is curiosity. Let us turn the map over, let us look beneath the sand, and maybe we'll rediscover who we really are. The Sahara was never empty. It was never silent. Beneath the sand lies a forgotten chapter of our story, a time when rivers carved valleys, cities flourished, and people called the desert home. We've only scratched the surface. The ancient maps, the lost rivers, the buried ruins, they all point to one truth. History isn't missing, it's just hidden. If we dare to look deeper, if we dare to ask what else lies beneath, we might just rewrite everything we thought we knew. So The next time you see the endless dunes, remember the greatest mysteries aren't always across the stars. Sometimes they're buried beneath our feet. If this journey into the forgotten Sahara fascinated you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. The next mystery is already waiting.